Welcome to the Hindu editorial dictation. Heading is aiming to decolonize through colonial logic. Ready? Start. In July, the Ministry of Home Affairs constituted the Committee for Reforms in Criminal Law to undo the colonial foundations of our criminal law. The precise mandate of the committee has not been put into the public domain, but it is apparent that the committee aims to recommend an overhaul of the Indian criminal justice system. Among others, judges, lawyers, and activists have voiced their concerns about the composition and operation of the committee. Reforms based on the committee's recommendations will have serious ramifications for every person who is subjected to the criminal justice system. A smoothly functioning legal system determines our freedom to live authentic lives as full citizens in a democratic polity. The administration of criminal justice shapes the boundaries of whom we love, what we say, whether we complain about violence, how we respond to hate, and many other foundational aspects of our lives. Despite the pervasive ways in which criminal laws interact with our most intimate decisions, the scope of these law is now going to determined by a process that is exclusionary for most of the Indian citizenry. If the aim is to decolonize the law by disabling democratic deliberation, that committee has set itself up for failure from its very inspection. Decolonization was not a moment in 1947. Decolonization is an ongoing process which requires a commitment to undoing the colonial logic of domination governing citizen state relations. The committee's methods, on the other hand, entrench structures of operation. As we analyze below, they treat a majority of the population as having nothing valuable to offer to the reform process. Disabling participation. The committee's procedures are designed to disable broad based participation. The exclusive route to participation is the committee's website. However, only about 40% of the population actively uses the internet. Internet usage itself is linked to structural barriers. For example, women are less likely to have internet access, and in Kashmir, internet services that were suspended in August 2019 are yet to be fully restored. Further, all the committee's documentation and background resources, including 89 reports of the Law Commission of India, are in English. The most reliable estimates suggest that only 10% of the Indian population speaks English, and most such persons reside in urban areas. Moreover, the life cycle of the committee coincide with the COVID-19 pandemic. The pandemic has wrought havoc on people's lives and livelihoods, with several mar- marginalized groups struggling to secure even rudimentary healthcare, education, and employment. It is unconvincible that they could participate meaningfully in a reform exercise of this scale at this moment in time. Finally, there appears to be no representation on the committee from subaltern caste, gender, sexual, or religious groups. As far as we can tell, there is no representation from working class of disabled communities, let alone fraught areas of conflict. There are no members on the committee based outside of a limited geographic region in North India. It is crucial for a committee tasked with transforming criminal justice to be more representative. It must include members who can speak to the experience of the many public governed by the criminal law. Oppressed communities across India are overpoliced and underprotected. Religious minorities as well as the impoverished Dalit and Adivasi communities bear the brunt of criminal law through police violence, long periods of under trial detention, harsh punishments, and poor legal representation. Women, transgender people, and sexual minorities who overwhelmingly experience gender based violence are frequent system. The committee's composition and operation render democratic participation from these groups impossible. Full stop.